If you look at a traditional map of a city, it looks entirely permanent.
Oh, absolutely. Just these thick gray lines of
Yeah.
concrete.
Right? Static blocks of buildings, a rigid grid that feels like it's been set in stone for a century. But if you were to look at a thermal map or even a demographic map of Montreal today, that static picture completely
It
shatters.
really does. You realize you're looking at a living organism.
Exactly. An organism that is currently undergoing massive, highly calculated surgery. And in this deep dive, we are going to unpack the exact blueprint of how this city is literally tearing up its own foundation to fight climate change.
Yeah, and reclaim its industrial history.
Right, while simultaneously trying to solve a historic housing crisis. Today's insights are drawn from a really massive stack of urban planning documents, real estate analyses, and government press releases.
And we got all of these from the platforms wikiresidence.ca and infodrone.ca.
Yes, and just a quick note before we jump in. If you want to pull on any of these threads yourself, both platforms offer these sources in text and audio versions. So, okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even talk about building the future of a city, we have to talk about fixing the actual ground we walk on.
Yeah, the ground level is where the most aggressive and honestly the most necessary interventions are happening right now. You literally have to start from the dirt up.
And it makes perfect sense when you look at how we've built cities over the last century.
Yeah.
Our default setting was to just pave over everything.
Right. Just wrap the metropolis in asphalt and concrete.
Exactly, creating this massive invisible public health issue. I always picture those heavily mineralized downtown areas as like a giant cast iron skillet left on a hot stove.
That is a great way to think about it.
Right, all day long that dark pavement and concrete is just soaking up solar energy.
Yeah.
And when the sun goes down, it doesn't cool off. It radiates that heat right back out all night long.
The data actually takes your skillet analogy a step further. It isn't just holding heat, it is actively changing the microclimate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, planners call these urban heat islands. And the thermal readings from downtown Montreal's mineralized zones show they run anywhere from 5 to 12 degrees Celsius hotter than the surrounding rural or, heavily vegetated areas.
Wait, 12 degrees, that is massive.
It's huge.
That pushes a comfortable summer evening straight into a dangerous, suffocating heat wave.
And the ripple effects hit every single layer of municipal infrastructure. Like when you have impermeable surfaces, solid concrete heavy rains have nowhere to go but straight into the sewers.
Which causes backups.
Exactly. It
Wow.
dramatically increases the risk of major network overflows. Simultaneously, that trapped ambient heat triggers massive spikes in air conditioning usage.
Putting incredible strain on the energy grid.
Grids, drinking, water resources, all of it.
But the math on fixing this is surprisingly straightforward. The sources show that simply pulling up that asphalt and replacing it with plant life drops the ambient temperature of a site by 5 to 10 degrees.
Which completely reverses the heat island effect.
Right, so we are seeing the city go on the offensive. Take the Griffintown Special Planning Program. Historically, this is a very industrial, heavily paved area in the Sudowest Borough.
Oh yeah, very concrete heavy.
The city is throwing a $198 million budget specifically at public infrastructure and greening. They are carving out 5.3 hectares of brand new parks and completely redeveloping 10 kilometers of streets to plant a new canopy.
And they aren't just doing this for aesthetics.
No, they're doing this to support the incoming construction of 18,000 new housing units.
While Griffintown is utilizing a massive public investment approach, other boroughs are pulling regulatory levers to force the private sector's hand.
Oh, like in Rosemont.
Yes. In Rosemont-La Petite Patrie, they are using zoning bylaws to mandate adaptation. If a developer is doing a major renovation or a new project, they are strictly obligated to install white, highly reflective roofs or green vegetated roofs.
It's fascinating how they mandate this on such a granular level. Like in Rosemont, if you want to build a new parking lot with 10 or more spaces, you have to allocate at least 15% of that surface area to landscaping. You literally have to break up the skillet.
What's fascinating here is the underlying economic driver. This taps directly into the location premium.
Meaning people pay more for greener areas.
Exactly. We know that green infrastructure drives property values because buyers fundamentally want to live near shaded parks and green alleys.
Right, that makes sense.
For the residents, this greening directly reduces the energy costs associated with cooling their homes. But the vital secondary effect is the massive load it takes off the local healthcare system.
Oh, because of heat-related illnesses.
Yeah. Bringing that ambient temperature down prevents heat stroke among vulnerable populations and seniors. It shifts the burden of care away from emergency rooms and back into proactive urban design.
When I see these sweeping multi-million-dollar mandates, I always wonder how they actually change the street you walk down every day. Like,
Yeah.
the spreadsheets look great, but what does a demineralized city actually feel like?
Well, you have to look at the micro-transformations to see that reality. It is one thing to mandate a 15% landscaping quota, but another entirely to see how that physical shift alters neighborhood dynamics.
Yeah, and there is a perfect hyperlocal example of this in Point St. Charles. There was this spot known as the Island Placette.
Oh, right.
By all accounts, it was a complete concrete wasteland, just a highly paved, fast-moving transit corridor. But through a $1.3 million investment, it has been completely ripped up and transformed into Emily-Coonan Square. And what really stands out is that over $367,000 of that funding came directly from Hydro-Quebec.
Wait, really? Hydro-Quebec chipped in that much?
Yeah, as part of their program to reinvest in communities where they operate infrastructure.
And the engineering of that space is a total overhaul. I mean, they didn't just drop some planters on the concrete and call it a day.
Right. They embedded active mobility paths, installed a 4-season electric BXI bike station, and carved out a universally accessible, safe connection straight to the Lachine Canal.
Which is huge for accessibility.
Totally. They actually softened the slopes, added handrails, and made the temporary traffic calming measures permanent. It forces cars to physically slow down and acknowledge the pedestrians. But the cultural anchor of the project is the name itself.
Emily-Coonan.
Yes. Emily-Coonan was a local impressionist and post-impressionist painter who lived from 1885 to 1971. She was a true pioneer, a female artist from a working-class Catholic background right there in Point St. Charles, who managed to win a travel bursary from the National Gallery of Canada back in 1913 to study in Europe.
That's incredible history to bring back to the surface. Naming this new green space after her reclaims a vital piece of local history.
It really does.
It also resolves a long-standing request from that specific community who wanted that abandoned space reclaimed for years. It perfectly illustrates how climate adaptation can simultaneously foster social cohesion.
Yeah. Turning a road into a park changes everything.
Exactly. By removing the asphalt and planting trees, you turn a hostile transit corridor into an outdoor living room. It becomes a gathering space that anchors the neighborhood.
It is amazing to see how $1 million can completely heal a single neighborhood square. But what happens when the scar on the city isn't a tiny transit corridor, but an industrial wasteland the size of 50 Costco stores?
Yeah, that's a whole different scale.
Right. How does the math of greening scale up to that level?
Then you are talking about the sleeping giant in Montreal's East End.
The former Esso oil refinery site.
Yep.
This piece of land is nearly 7 million square feet. That is 124 football fields of prime real estate that has just been sitting inactive, fenced off, and frozen in time since 1983.
It's honestly hard to visualize that much empty space in a city.
It is. Now, the Quebec government is investing $122.9 million just to acquire and begin decontaminating the site. The total decontamination process is projected to take 5 to 10 years and cost an estimated $150 million.
Which is a staggering amount of money.
The vision is to transition this highly contaminated petroleum site from gray to green, turning it into a mixed-use innovation hub focused on clean technologies, artificial intelligence, and photonics optics. They are projecting this could draw a daily footfall of 10,000 to 15,000 people.
It's a generational project designed to fundamentally change the economic engine of the eastern part of the metropolis.
I understand the ambition, I really do. But reading through the financial details, I definitely felt some pushback. I mean, wait a second. Esso operates refinery, pollutes this massive tract of land for decades, and then just gets to walk away. And the taxpayers have to foot a $123 million bill to clean it up.
It is a very common reaction to these types of industrial megaprojects. I mean, it sounds completely unfair, but the legal context outlined in the documents explains the predicament the city is in. Esso's refining operations on that site ceased in 1983. That was before the modern requirements of the Environmental Quality Act came into force.
Oh, so they slipped through a loophole.
Basically, under the letter of the law at the time, the company wasn't legally bound to rehabilitate the land before walking away.
That is just wild to think about.
It is a frustrating reality, but the burden shifts entirely if the city wants to reclaim that space. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that specific Esso site is just the first domino.
What do you mean?
Montreal's East End has approximately 30 million square feet of abandoned industrial land sitting idle.
30 million square feet of dead space in a major city facing a housing crisis is just unfathomable.
Which is exactly why this $123 million investment is the necessary catalyst. If they can successfully decontaminate and develop the Esso site, it proves the financial and engineering model to unlock the rest of those wastelands.
Right, it's the proof of concept.
Yes. It also corrects a major urban planning mistake of the 20th century. Historically, we drastically separated industrial zones from residential zones. That created dead dormitory communities where people only slept and massive concrete deserts where people only worked.
Commuting between the two.
Right. This new hub integrates green networks and active mobility corridors, so residents of Pointe-aux-Trembles and Hochelaga-Maisonneuve can actually work, live, and play in the exact same footprint.
Okay, so the East End strategy is about building from scratch on massive, empty, toxic lots. But the Quartier Latin presents a completely different puzzle.
Very different.
How do you densify an area that is already densely populated, deeply historic, and culturally vital? You can't exactly drop a 7 million square foot AI hub in the middle of set industry.
No, definitely not. The Quartier Latin requires a much more surgical approach. You have to weave new infrastructure into a very rigid, beloved historic fabric.
And that brings us to the Institut de Tourisme et d'Hôtellerie du Québec, the ITHQ. They are the premier hospitality and culinary school in Canada, operating since 1968. They've trained incredible chefs, but, well, they've completely run out of physical space.
They are bursting at the seams.
So they have the green light for a brand new 4,600 square meter management and innovation pavilion. Ponolo and the Angus Development Corporation are teaming up to deliver this by fall 2028, and they are operating under a social economy formula.
Which basically means the financial structure prioritizes community benefit and reinvestment rather than just maximizing private shareholder profit.
Right. They aren't just building classrooms, they're building highly specialized ecosystems, like the Gastronomique Lab and Experisons, which research food science and customer experience. But here's where it gets really interesting. The location is at 1720 to 1726 St. Denis Street, the site of the former Le Commensal restaurant.
Oh, I know that spot.
Yeah, there are two historic brick houses there. They aren't officially classified as heritage sites, but the architects, Provencher Roy, are meticulously preserving that original brick facade.
That's amazing.
They are keeping the 18th century face of the street while completely rebuilding a modern, green, natural light-filled structure right behind it.
This is a perfect execution of soft densification. You are drastically increasing the capacity and utility of the land without destroying the architectural heritage that gives the Quartier Latin its specific character.
Best of both worlds, really.
Absolutely. Preserving a facade while excavating and building a state-of-the-art facility behind it is a massive engineering challenge. But the true value of this project is the human element. By pumping hundreds of permanent students, researchers, and professors into this sector day and night, the ITHQ acts as a massive social catalyst.
It creates a captive, built-in customer base for the neighborhood.
That critical mass of pedestrians directly supports the local cafes, the restaurants, and the cultural businesses. It creates a continuous 247 occupation of the area, which fosters a safer, more dynamic, and deeply resilient urban environment.
It's an architectural intervention that actively heals the local microeconomy.
Exactly.
So we have these incredible visions on the table. We are tearing up asphalt for green parks, building AI hubs on oil refineries, and erecting high-tech culinary labs behind brick facades. But we have to address the massive elephant in the room here.
The logistics of it all.
Right. How do we actually build all of this when we are in the middle of a massive labor shortage in the construction trades and an unprecedented housing affordability crisis?
That is where the traditional construction model is failing. It simply cannot keep pace with the scale of this blueprint.
Traditional construction almost feels like trying to cook a 5-course meal in a windstorm. You are completely at the mercy of the weather, you have material theft, and you are trying to coordinate dozens of different trades in the mud. But the sources highlight a massive shift toward modular prefabrication. If traditional building is cooking in a windstorm, modular prefabrication is like building a car on an assembly line.
The modules are built in a perfect lab environment.
Exactly. The walls arrive on site with the electrical wiring, the insulation, and the plumbing already sealed inside them, and you literally just plug them in like Legos.
The efficiency metrics on this shift are undeniable. By moving the construction process into a controlled factory environment, You cut the total building time by 50%.
Half the time. That's incredible.
Yeah, a project that takes 18 months on site takes 6 months in the factory.
And the waste reduction is staggering. On a traditional site, material waste from weather damage, offcuts, or theft can easily reach 15%. In a factory, that waste plummets to just 2%.
That's a huge material savings.
Plus, because you are just assembling the finished modules on-site with a crane, it reduces neighborhood noise pollution by 70%.
Which the neighbors definitely appreciate.
Oh, for sure. The sources point to several local innovators driving this. You have Bone Structure, who use light steel. What's brilliant there is they engineer it with no thermal bridges.
Which is crucial for energy efficiency.
Yes. In Montreal's brutal winters, a thermal bridge is basically a fast track for heat to escape through the framing. But Bone Structure's design completely eliminates that energy loss, and their digital precision is perfect for tight downtown lots.
You also have companies doing larger scale stuff too, right?
Yeah. Then you have RCM Modular, who are tackling high-density social housing. They are working with the OMHM, which is the Municipal Housing Office, delivering institutional buildings at record speeds to prevent financing costs from ballooning.
You also see players like Profab focusing on locked-in, fixed costs to help developers weather inflation. And Maisons using Esso adapting this tech to build backyard accessory dwelling units.
Oh, those intergenerational mini-homes popping up in boroughs like Rosemont.
Exactly.
And the cost savings are real. Eric Bonneville from Industries Bonneville noted that through this factory optimization, they can bring the cost of a home down to around $350,000. That is a massive breakthrough for affordability.
It really is. But this raises an important question. Why is the government suddenly pushing so hard to support these prefabrication factories right now?
Is there a bigger reason?
Yeah, if we look at the macroeconomic data provided, it comes down to international trade. U.S. surtaxes are heavily penalizing Quebec's exports of raw materials, specifically softwood lumber, aluminum, and steel.
Oh, so instead of exporting those materials across the border at a massive loss due to the tariffs, they are absorbing them locally.
Precisely. The prefabrication factories buy those materials dynamically. The aluminum goes into the fenestration, the steel into the structural frames, the wood into the modules.
That's so smart.
By transforming the raw material into a finished product, a complete house, before it ever leaves the province, prefabrication acts as an economic shield. It creates a fully domestic, closed-loop value chain that solves an international export crisis and a local housing crisis simultaneously.
It is brilliant in its efficiency. When you step back and look at this entire blueprint, it really forces you to imagine what the future of this city is going to feel like.
It's going to be a completely different experience.
You'll be walking down a street where the asphalt doesn't radiate heat because of the mandated green canopy. You could take the train to a bustling AI hub that used to be a toxic 40-year-old oil refinery. You can grab lunch in the Quartier Latin at a cutting-edge culinary research lab hidden perfectly behind an 18th century facade.
Right.
And you could go home to an affordable, beautifully designed house that was built in a factory in half the time, using local steel and timber. So what does this all mean? It means the surgery is already underway.
The blueprint is certainly being executed. But, I want to leave you with a philosophical thought to mull over, something that isn't explicitly mapped out in the zoning bylaws or the budgets.
Okay, what is it?
As our cities become perfectly optimized, as we demineralize every street, as we assemble every building modularly with 2% waste, and as we logically plan every mixed-use sector to absolute perfection, what happens to the psychological identity of a city?
Oh, that's a really interesting point.
Right. Do we run the risk of sanitizing the organic, chaotic, and sometimes messy history that makes a city's culture so vibrant in the first place? As we fix the infrastructure, how do we balance perfect, sterile efficiency with the living, breathing soul of a metropolis?
Wow, that is the ultimate tightrope walk for the future of urban planning, and it's something to keep in mind the next time you walk through your own neighborhood. We highly encourage you to ponder that, and remember you can explore the original source materials for all these projects in both text and audio formats at wikiresidence.ca and infodrone.ca. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for your attention. You can find all our articles, columns, and special editions in audio and text formats. Our content is accessible on mobile, tablet, computer, and television via wikiresidence.ca. Please feel free to share your comments and suggestions with you.